As a salon or spa owner, cosmetology school gave you the skills to serve clients, but it definitely didn't teach you how to run a business. Somewhere along the way, you probably thought ownership would mean freedom, but instead you're working more hours than ever, barely paying yourself, and low-key worried everything's going to fall apart the second you step away. Welcome to the Beauty Biz Breakdown, where we give you the real strategies, systems, and structure that you need to fully step into the CEO seat in your beauty business. Hey friends, welcome back to the Beauty Biz Breakdown, the go-to podcast for salon and spa owners who are ready to build a more profitable, more predictable beauty business. I'm Brie, and as always, I've got my co-host Chandra here with me. Hey girl.
Hello, hello.
How are you?
Doing good. Running crazy like always, but I'm doing really good.
Story of your life.
Always.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to get into today's topic. I think it's going to be really important for a lot of people to talk about. So, I want to start out just by being real. I spent years thinking something was wrong with me because no matter how hard I worked, no matter how much I loved my family and poured into them, no matter how much I poured into my business, there was always this feeling sitting like on the top of my chest that made me feel like somehow it was never enough, like I wasn't enough. I truly think this is something that almost every female business owner struggles with at some point. And it can really affect your business, your marriage, your kids, your confidence, and honestly, even the way that you make decisions. For a really long time, I referred to this feeling as guilt. You know, I had mom guilt or wife guilt or business owner guilt. It's just that feeling that no matter where you are or what you are doing, part of you feels like you should be somewhere else doing something else for somebody else. But the further I got into my entrepreneurial journey, the more I really started looking at what I was actually feeling. And I realized that I wasn't sure it was actually guilt. I think some of what I was feeling was something just entirely different. So today, I kind of want to talk about that because I know if I have felt this way, there's probably a lot of other women out there listening that have felt this way too. Chandra, I know you felt this way as well.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, exactly how you described it right now, I think is exactly, how it felt for me as well. And I'm sure many people.
Yeah, I think so. You know, I've been on a lot of strategy calls lately, and this is just a common thing that I hear over and over and over again. And so it really got me thinking about it. I think before we can get into it too much, though, we have to define what guilt actually is. Because real guilt usually means something happened that needs to be made right. Maybe you made a choice that went against your beliefs or your values. Maybe you hurt someone. Maybe you handled something in a way that you know in your heart wasn't right or wasn't okay. That's what guilt is. And that kind of guilt is definitely real. I want everybody to understand that I'm not saying guilt isn't real. We can't ignore that feeling. We have to address it, right? If something needs to be owned, repaired, apologized for, then yes, we have to pay attention to that and we have to handle it. But I don't necessarily think what most women are carrying around every day is guilt. I think a lot of this is just a heavy mix of sadness, fear, pressure, responsibility, shame, maybe some old expectations. And because we don't always know what else to call it, we just kind of label it guilt. And I think that matters because guilt is what makes you feel like you have to pay for something. It makes you feel like you owe something. It makes you feel like you need to prove that you're still a good mom or a good friend or a good wife or a good leader or even just a good woman in general. But, if you miss something with your kids and your heart hurts over it, maybe that's not guilt. Maybe that's just sadness. And sadness is not always a sign that you failed or that you did something wrong. Sometimes it just means that something mattered to you dearly. If you're worried someone you love is disappointed in you, that might not be guilt either. That may be fear that they are going to be upset, going to be mad at you, fear that they don't understand you, fear that your decision maybe affected them in a way that you never really wanted it to. And if the voice in your head keeps telling you things like it did me, I should be doing better, I should be able to handle more, other women are probably carrying this better than what you're doing, that is more shame than it is guilt. And shame is always going to leave you questioning who you are, not just what happened, but really who you are at the core of it. I think this is why we can't just throw all of this into the same bucket and just label it as guilt. Sadness needs to be, labeled as sadness. And sadness, it's something different than fear. Fear needs something different than shame, and real guilt needs something different than all of these combined. I just think if we name it wrong, we usually reach for the wrong fix. We try to fix sadness with like a better schedule. We try to fix fear by over explaining ourselves to people. We try to fix shame by working harder or doing more or proving that we can just handle everything. And that gets really, really exhausting. So I think before we can ever fix the feeling, we have to pause long enough and ask ourselves, what am I actually dealing with here? And I don't think we do that enough. We have to name it correctly, not so we can overthink every feeling, but so that we can stop punishing ourselves for things that were never actually guilt in the first place. Chandra, I'm curious, what do you think about this? Because I feel like women use the word guilt almost as a catch all. I just think it's kind of in our DNA. Do you think sometimes we call it guilt because we've never really been given any type of better language for what we're actually feeling?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely part of it. I also think that we feel so much pressure as women most of the time to carry all those hats, right? To be the best mom, to be the best business owner, to be the best whatever. And it's just impossible sometimes. Like you just can't. And I think instead of really like sitting down and just taking that time to look at your situation and to really figure out what it is that's causing you to feel that way, or what it is that's causing you that kind of stress and anxiety or upset or whatever it is, I think that's what we do. We just call it guilt. We're like, oh, I just feel guilty. It's easy. You don't have to stop. You don't have to think about it. And then you already feel like you're not doing enough anyways. So now you feel guilty because you're not doing enough anyways. And so I think it's just that kind of vicious cycle that, especially women feel like all the time when they're trying to wear all those different hats.
Yeah, 100%. I definitely was somebody who never stopped and questioned what I was actually feeling. And I think we as women, like I said earlier, it's just in our DNA. We're taught to keep going. We're taught to keep handling. We're taught to keep being strong, keep being the person that everybody can count on. And that really, I feel like, starts early on in our life. I don't think most of us were ever set down and just told outright, hey, as a woman, your job is to be there for everyone, to literally carry everyone and everything. I don't necessarily think that happened. I think it happened to us in a more subtle way. It was more like, as we were growing up, we noticed what got praised. We noticed how much people appreciate the woman who could just figure it all out, make it work, and not need much from anybody out there. You notice who gets called strong. You notice who gets called selfish. You notice how quickly a woman can be judged when she says, you know what? I need help, or I need things as well. So I feel like by the time we're grown women, we're not always reacting to what is happening right now in the moment. A lot of times we are reacting through beliefs that we picked up years ago, and we never even realize that we're holding on to those. Somewhere along the way, a lot of us started believing that being a good woman means being available all the time. A good mom sacrifices constantly. A good wife, she stays strong. A good leader, they carry all of the emotional weight. A good business owner is always there for every single person that is involved. And then you add all of that together, and that expectation that you have for yourself just becomes completely impossible. You've got to be present at home, available at work, calm for your team, loving to your family, generous to your clients, emotionally steady for everyone, supportive, patient, understanding, never too tired, never too needy, never too much. And guys, I don't think that's healthy at all. I don't think being a good woman means you're supposed to give every single part of yourself away until there's absolutely nothing left. And I want to be really careful here because I don't want anyone twisting what I'm saying. I'm not saying responsibility is bad. I'm not saying sacrifice is bad at all. I think there are seasons where your family's going to need more from you. There's seasons where your business is going to need more from you. There's seasons where you have to put your own comfort to the side because something else really needs your attention. That's real life. But I think sacrifice and self-abandonment are not the same thing. Sacrifice, it's a choice you make out of love. Self-abandonment is what happens when you've been taught that your needs are the least important thing in the room. And I think so many women have been praised for self abandonment their whole lives, and they just don't realize that that's what it is. They were called strong when they were exhausted. They were celebrated for holding everything together while privately just falling apart. I did that so many times within my life. People admired them for making it work, but nobody really stopped and asked what making it work was actually costing somebody. I just think it's really emotional for us women because a lot of us have spent years being the dependable one, the strong one, the one that can handle anything, the one that just makes things work, the one who does, not want to make things harder for anybody else. I've gone through this a lot in my life, especially with the way that my husband works. And I think I noticed as I was sitting here thinking about this episode, Chandra, that everything just started coming up for me, like all of these feelings for the past 2 decades. And I think for me, when I finally started asking for help, or I finally started setting boundaries, or even making more money, changing the way that I was leading my team, not being available for everyone all the time, it felt very wrong in the beginning. And it's not because I was doing something wrong, it's because I was no longer being the version of myself that everybody else was used to. That was really, really hard for me to accept. Did you go through anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, just recently, like I've been carrying that torch the way that you've been explaining it this whole time forever. And it took a major health surgery that like made me stop and go, wait a minute. This is not how I should be living my life. Like I shouldn't be doing things this way. And I realized, I mean, even when, after my surgery, I was like laid up, could do nothing. And I still felt guilty for not being able to be there for everybody all the time. Like everybody had to pick up all my slack, 100%. And so I think that was for me when things started to come out, like you're describing, where everything hits you and all those emotions hit you, and you realize, like, I've been feeling like this for pretty much my whole entire life, longer than I can remember not feeling like this. And so it's very hard to go through that transition. And so I've definitely been there. And I feel like now it's still weird sometimes. Like I say no to things that I normally wouldn't have said no to, just because I'm like, this isn't really serving me or anybody else that amazingly. You know what I mean? And so it's like, I don't need to be the one doing this all the time. And so it still feels a little bit wrong every now and then, but I'm getting better for sure.
That's a good thing. I mean, I just think every woman goes through this, whether they want to admit it or not. I really, really do. And I think it hits all of us in a different way, but I really do think it stems from, as we're growing up and what we see throughout everything. I think that's something that I realized when I was really just putting this episode kind of together, is that it really does kind of shape us from when we're younger. Something else that came up when I was thinking about this is responsibility versus over responsibility. And I think that's huge. This is not about avoiding responsibility in any way, because you do have real responsibilities as a wife, as a mom, as a business owner, as a leader, as a friend, as a daughter, just as a freaking person. Those things are real and they matter. Responsibility says, my kids need love. They need safety. They need structure. They need my presence. My relationships need care. My business needs my leadership. My team needs clarity from me. Those things are what responsibility kind of stands for. But over responsibility is a little bit different. It says more like, I have to make sure nobody is ever disappointed in me. I have to manage everybody's emotions, my husband's, my kids, myself, my team, literally everyone. If someone is upset, I must have done something wrong. If someone doesn't understand my decision, I need to explain it until they're okay, until they understand it. And we do this with everyone, with our clients, with our employees, like our friends, literally every single person in our life. And it just affects us so much. I think it weighs us down more than we ever thought that it would. And I think it's because we care so deeply. We care so much that it just starts feeling weird. It bubbles up. Chandra, have you gone through anything like this as well? Or are you kind of on the opposite side? Because I've seen women kind of in both standpoints.
I mean, I feel like I've been in both standpoints, to be honest, like over the years, like back and forth, but it's the same thing. Like My childhood, the way I grew up, like I've always been the one in control of everything, even with my parents. Like I've always, so it's like you take that on and you have to be in control of everyone's emotions, like you said, everything that happens, every situation. If it's not working out, then yeah, you must have done something wrong or you didn't make the right choice or, and so yeah, I've definitely been on both sides of that spectrum, I feel like, where, also just kind of sometimes like just I give up, I just let everything go. And that's not good either. And so it's like you have to have that happy medium of what's important to you and what you want. And I think that's what you have to focus on to kind of balance things instead of it's not your response. Everybody's stuff is not all your responsibility all the time.
Yeah, and I think one of the things with over responsibility that really stands out is that if it exists in your personal life, it is going to follow you into your business and into your leadership. That is 100% true. You start feeling bad for enforcing a policy that you clearly communicated, you knew, but you had to enforce it again. You hesitate on raising prices when your numbers are telling you that you have to. You keep answering messages at all hours of the night. Like we talk about these things every single day. And I don't think how much we correlate how it comes from our personal life into our business all the time. It's absolutely insane to me how that works in every single way. And I think it makes you just start feeling a lot of different emotions. And once again, when I was kind of going through this, I was like, okay, I remember feeling guilty for that, but guilty wasn't what I was really feeling. I was feeling disappointed in myself at times. I was feeling scared. I was feeling all of these other things. And we can't allow that to lead us because if we allow that to lead us, we are going to lead our team down the wrong complete path. And so I hope that a lot of salon and spa owners really listen to this and think about that. We've really got to get our personal lives in order and in shape if we want to be the best business owners and the best leaders that we can be. And it's the same thing if we're going through something in our business, it's going to filter into our personal life and it's really going to affect everything. Chandra, do you think women struggle with all of this because they don't want to not make the right decision. They just want everybody to feel okay with that decision too?
Yeah, I mean, I think they struggle with it, yeah, because they don't want to make the wrong decision. I also think that they struggle with it because they don't see any other way. When you've been doing it for that long, you don't really know. It feels wrong, to make a change, to not do things the way that you've been doing it for all that time. And so, I think when you do start trying to, you just sometimes it's like we talk about when we're like owners sometimes when they can't get out of their own ways because they're so used to being in charge of everything all the time instead of, kind of taking that step back. And I think the same thing happens even with this when you're trying to get a handle on your personal life or you're trying to get a handle on stuff. It's like you don't know how to stop doing that sometimes. And I think that's hard for them, hard for me.
Absolutely. It's hard for all of us, right? And I think you hit the nail on the head because I think this is where all of us women have to be really, really honest with ourselves. Sometimes the things that we're calling guilt is actually the discomfort of finally becoming the woman we said we wanted to be, whether that be in our personal life or in our business. That's a whole different conversation. Everybody loves the idea of growth until growth starts requiring a different version of you. A version who, communicates better, a version who stops apologizing for leading the business the way that they're supposed to. I think this is where everything kind of comes together. And we have to be really careful as we are coaching salon and spa owners. You and I hear this all the time. It's like we can almost see that guilt in them or what they're calling guilt for doing the things they know they should have done a long, long time ago. And that's not easy. Those changes aren't easy. And I'm not going to pretend like it is. When you've spent years being one version of yourself, even a healthier version, a tiny bit of a healthier version, that can feel really, really scary at first. It's very unfamiliar. It can make you question if you are becoming too hard or too selfish or too focused or too ambitious or just too different. But you've got to ask yourself, what if you are not becoming too much? What if you are just becoming more honest? What if you are just finally admitting that the way you've been carrying things is no longer sustainable? What if the old version of you was loved, but she was also absolutely exhausted and burnt out? What if she did the best that she could, but she is not the version that can carry you into the next season? once again, in your personal or professional life. I think this is where things get deeper than just, I feel guilty. It really, really does. Because sometimes what rises up when you change, it's not that guilt or warning sign. Sometimes it's just that old version of you saying, I can't do this anymore. I can't carry it anymore. Chandra, in your entrepreneurial journey, when have you felt this way? Like you were just to the point to where you couldn't carry it anymore. You knew you needed to make changes. You started to make those changes, but then the guilt, the sadness, the discomfort, all of that just filtered in.
Yeah, I think I've done this so many times over the years, but I mean, I think the biggest thing, the hardest thing for me when I tried making changes was when I first started trying to pull out from behind the chair, because I'm not taking these clients anymore. And these clients are upset with me. And then my team, I feel like I have to be the one to show them, you have to hustle and work 20 clients a day behind the chair. Now they don't see me doing that anymore. So then I was like, okay, well, how are they going to understand how to work behind the chair? And then you start like, that was probably one of the biggest times for me. And you went through a lot of that with me too. And it's like going back and forth, right? Like, okay, nope, I can't do this. It's not going to work. It's not, and then everything, changes once you do start stepping into that other role. Everything changed, once I stepped away from the service provider role into that more business owner role, everything was fine. Everything changed. I was in charge of different things, but it was easier in many ways than trying to be this person all the time that's like, there's no reason you guys can't clean all your own bowls and take 20 clients a day and do this and do that, because now I'm running the business and I'm running all these clients. And it's just crazy. And that's how most salon owners roll, that's their everyday. And so it is hard, very hard, when you try to stop doing that role, because that's how your team knows you, that's how they see you, that's your whole identity, and so it's like changing your identity. It's hard, and you go back and forth. You try it and then you get scared, you go back, and then you try it and then you get scared and you go back. But yeah, that's my experience.
You know what it kind of reminds me of? It kind of reminds me of grief. Because I think there's grief in growth, kind of. There's grief in changing roles. There's grief in watching your kids grow and realizing you cannot get certain seasons back. There's grief in building something that matters and realizing it did cost you something. There's grief in realizing you cannot be the same woman to everyone forever. I think grief is actually a really good way to put it to an extent. And I think grief is something that we need to think about. Maybe it's not guilt. Maybe it is more of that grief season that we're kind of going through. I think that can be extremely life changing. You're trying to honor what mattered while still moving forward. And that's a very, very important thing to feel. I think sometimes women just skip over the moment that they need to feel and they just go straight to blaming themselves and saying that they did something wrong, kind of like you did, back and forth and back and forth and back and forth all the time. And that's not the way to look about it. I don't know. I just feel like grief could possibly get mislabeled as guilt sometimes, especially when women are growing, building, parenting, changing, or stepping into a new season of their life. How do you feel about that?
No, I think you're 100% right as you're saying that. Like, you think about it, and it is kind of like you are mourning a different life, right? Like, that was a part of you, that's who you were. And like I said, for me, it was changing my identity and changing my mindset around what that was supposed to look like. And you do kind of have to let that go. And it is kind of like grief, like you've lost something that has been part of you for so long, even if it's a good thing eventually, right? But at the time, it might not feel like that. And so it might feel more like grief, like you're mourning something that is no longer.
Yeah. It's just that comfortability a lot of times of who we think we are. It is who we think we are and how we see ourselves because of who everybody else thinks that we are. We're so hard on ourselves. There's so many different emotions. And I think as women, what we've got to do is we've just got to figure out and take the time to really ask ourselves, what are we really feeling? This is something that I really had to do. I got to a point to where, I mean, I'm just gonna be honest, right? Like, I've lost 30 pounds in the last few months. Like, we're going through a lot personally right now. There's just a lot going on in life, and I think I got to the point where I was finally like, "I've gotta figure this out for myself. What is going on with me? What am I doing? What am I feeling? What am I needing?" Because I'm literally going to waste away and like make myself just this huge mess and ball of anxiety if I don't get something figured out. And I think we all just kind of have to figure out our road, but make sure that we are dealing with those things. This is going to be a little personal, and some people might not be okay hearing this. Some people might, but I'm always going to be true to who I am and what I believe when I'm going through things like this. And I honestly think that's kind of one of the beautiful things that makes the world go round. We all have our own personal beliefs. We all have our own feelings about things, and it's what makes all of us unique and special. We don't all have to process things the same way. We don't all have to believe the exact same things. For me, my faith is a huge part of how I process everything. And that's really what I had to get back to when I was trying to figure out everything that's going on around me. You know, I got to the point where my husband set me down and he was like, "What's going on?" Like, we have been together almost 30 years and there is something going on because you just don't look the same. And so I had to find what was gonna work for me, and for me, faith is that. One of the greatest gifts my faith has given me is, like, discernment, like, I can sit there and I can discern certain things, and the ability to get quiet enough to actually hear what's going on inside of me and my head, you know, instead of just reacting to it, and I think I just kinda got lost for a while, and I wasn't able to do that. I push through, I cry about it, I figure it out, I always do things and just put on this mask and move forward, and I think we really have to start taking the time to see what what we're really feeling, how we're going to, you know, deal with that instead of just putting a Band-Aid on it and moving on because I think women are just known for that. And I know faith is not that for everyone. Like not everybody does that, you know. That's for me. It might not be for everyone. That's the lens that I process every decision that I make through. I'm curious though, when all of this starts getting really heavy for you personally, Chandra, how do you process through it? Like, how do you tell the difference between something that is, you know, actually asking you to make a change and something that is just pressure trying to pull you back into old habits and things of that nature?
I mean, I would say somewhat similar, to what you do. I really have to take time and I have to sit and I have to, I do a lot of meditation. So I meditate on it. I try to get to the root of what's going on. And I've learned over the years kind of the same thing. It's like I just when I hit one of those moments where I'm feeling I call it like I feel out of control. Like I feel like I can't think. I have a hard time focusing on things because there's just so much stress or so much whatever it is, stress or anxiety or whatever. There's so many things, right? I have to really just I let it go and I just be, right? And so it's like as hard as it is to even say like how do you just let it go? I just let it go. Like I'm like enough is enough. Like I'm not going to do this anymore. And I'll sit with it and I'll meditate and I'll try to figure out what do I got to change? What do I need to do? And just letting go of it for me usually is what helps me start to kind of get it things back on track and start to realize okay what is it that I'm actually want, what do I want, what am I trying to do here, because it's not working. And so that's usually for me kind of, I mean it's kind of the same thing, you're really sitting there, you're kind of asking God or the universe or whatever it is that your thing is to like help you figure out exactly what's wrong with you. And so that's that's kind of how I processed it. And it's challenging sometimes, but I always figure it out, through that process.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. I definitely am not one of those that can just like let it go. That is not in my makeup at all. So I admire you for that because that is just something that I cannot do. I need to learn how to do it, but I can't do it. It's just something that I can't do. So I think that's really cool that you are able to do that. I I don't know. I just think these are things that we don't talk about near enough as women, you know? I'm thinking about this as you're sitting here explaining how you do things, how I do things, everything that we've gone through, and I'm like, even in our coaching, a lot of times this isn't stuff that we bring up. I mean, yes, we help people through anything and everything, but I think we need to be more on top of things in our coaching program, even when it comes to, you know, let's get these feelings out. How are you feeling? What are you feeling? So that people can actually learn to work through them. Because I think one of the biggest mistakes that we can make is we just keep pushing it down, pushing it down, pushing it down, or pretending like it has been fixed or solidified or whatever you want to call it, when in reality, that is my strong suit. That's what I do. I push it down, push it down, push it down, and then it all boils up and over. And then I get into the position that I've been in lately. And so, how do you think we go about doing that and helping women understand and not being afraid to come forward and to be able to say how they feel and what they need?
I mean, I don't know. For me, everything's always kind of black and white. Like I'm not a good I know we always like joke and say like I'm the nice one, you're the mean one, but I just am not good at like sugarcoating stuff sometimes. I just don't even want to talk about it. Like either you talk about it or you don't talk about it, but whatever it is, we got to get over it, you know? And so I feel like even just asking people like maybe like finding out, like just be honest. Where are you at? You know, are you going to explode right now? Are you going to like, are you having anxiety? Are you like losing your mind every 5 seconds? Do you even take 5 minutes for yourself? You know? And so it's like when you find that out about people, which I feel like you're really good at pulling that out of our coaching, like our members and stuff like that. It's like all of a sudden it's like the light bulb goes off and they're like, holy crap, it's me. I'm the problem, you know? And it's like they finally realize that. And then things start to get better, you know? So I think it's really just a lot of it just finding out where people are at and kind of meeting them where they're at. And then it's just like, all right, well, you got to get over it and we got to move on. So how do you do that for yourself? Because we can help you, but it ultimately has to come from them to realize it's like that's when those light bulb moments I think happen during coaching is when they finally realize, okay, yeah, it's me. It's not my team. It's not this. It's not that. It's not all these other things. I've been carrying this around and projecting this onto everyone.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I don't know. I think this is just kind of a cool conversation and
Hmm.
one that I don't hear much about. You know what I mean? And so I think it's really, really important. I think everybody needs somebody too. I mean, for me, obviously, I have my husband. He is like my rock, my ride or die. But I always need somebody else because, especially as a woman, I feel like women and men see things very, very differently. And so my husband can get to the analytical side of everything very, very easily and bring me down there. But when it comes to like the emotional side or the anxiety side or whatever, I feel like it almost has to be a woman that I can depend on and confide in to kind of get me on that sort of level. And so I just I don't know. I think these conversations need to be had a lot more because being a mom, being a wife, being a business owner, being all of these things wrapped into one, like we're never going to be able to do all of them 100%. And we shouldn't feel guilty constantly for doing those things. You know, I know now that a lot of what I felt guilty for was not guilt. It was sadness for missing things. It wasn't guilt, it was more sadness because I wasn't able to be there for something. And I think really being able to name those makes you look at things differently because when I thought it was guilt, I almost got into like this poor pitiful me or I suck kind of moment. But when I could really label it as sadness or disappointment or whatever it was, then I was able to kind of filter through it and move on just a little bit better. So, yeah, I think it's just a really, really cool conversation that we need to talk about more, whether it's, mom guilt, wife guilt, business owner guilt, whatever you're feeling, sadness, whatever. We've just got to slow down and figure out exactly what's going on so that we can get through it completely instead of piling it down like Brie does all the time. So I think we need to talk about that just a little bit more. If you were to give any of our listeners a piece of advice on how to kind of handle that or how to start maybe opening up a little bit more or really dealing with those emotions on the personal or professional side, what would you tell them?
I mean, I think just really sitting down, maybe, writing things out, like just figure out how you're really feeling. Like what is it that I'm feeling right now? Is it actually guilt or am I feeling sad? Am I feeling anxiety? Am I feeling things and I'm just labeling it that because it's easy? And I mean, as much as guilt can affect us, I feel like that's also one of the easiest emotions to ignore, right? So you can kind of be like, I feel really guilty and bad about that, but oh well, I'm just gonna move on over here. And again, like you do, pile it down over here until eventually it piles up so high it's overflowing. And so I think that's, just really sitting down and getting real with those emotions. And I think, you know, handling all those things, mom, all business owner, all that stuff, like something that has always stuck with me my whole life. It's like a quote that's like, Jack of all trades, master of none. Right. And so that's what ends up happening is you're doing all these other things, but you're not actually accomplishing or being good at any one thing because you're too spread out trying to handle all this other stuff and being stressed out. So that would be my advice.
Yeah, I like that. I think that's really, really good and very, very important. And you're right. You can't be, like I said earlier, 100% in everything, and because it's going to make you suck at a lot of things if you're not careful. That's just put it nicely. But yeah, I enjoyed this conversation. I think it's great. And I think people do really need to sit down and journaling. Journaling is huge. Like it is one of the best things that you will ever do. I go back and read through, I am a writer. I fill up a spiral notebook like every couple of weeks. And I go back through and read some of that stuff sometimes. And I'm like, man, I was in a dark place, or oh my gosh, that was really good to get through that, or whatever it is. And so I would highly recommend people doing that too. But all right, with that being said, before we wrap up, let's get into our listener question for the week. Today's question came in from Iowa. Her name is Savannah, and she said, I recently hired someone who is talented and very sweet, but she's so quiet, I'm worried clients are not connecting with her. Her work is good, but the appointment feels kind of flat, and I don't think she's creating the kind of experience that we want in my studio. How do I coach someone on personality and guest connection without making them feel like I am criticizing who they are? Chandra?
I mean, I feel like this is kind of one of the hardest things. We used to have one of these people, and now she's just fine. And so I think really working with them to I try to find out like what it is. Are they just not a talker or are they just afraid to have conversations? And I find that because I'm not a huge talker when I work behind the chair, my clients usually talk most of it and I'm just kind of there. But some people I think are just sort of to have those conversations. Sometimes it's confidence level, sometimes it's things like that. And so we when we get somebody like that, we really try to work through like what it is because you can be not a talker but still be engaging with your clients. And I think that's what they don't understand sometimes is they feel like they either have to be talking all the time or they just be quiet. And so you still have to have some sort of engagement with them. So I think it's really finding out why they feel uncomfortable or because that's a killer. Like I think most of the clients will return if they're not connecting with the personality, they're not going to come back even if the hair was good. And so I think the retention is higher when they are connecting with the client. So it's really teaching them how to connect. How do you ask maybe certain questions that can kind of open up a conversation, but that feel comfortable for that stylist to start having. And most of the time, once they kind of start doing that a little bit, they become comfortable, I feel like, and they end up okay.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. I also think something that we teach at the Beauty Biz Agency is role playing. Utilize role playing in everything that you do. Chandra's right. You have to have that connection. That doesn't mean you have to overshare because there's a bear. People overshare too. Like I have had stylists that I'm like, what in the actual crap are you doing? Like, stop. Nobody cares about that. Nobody needs to know. I didn't even want to know that. Like, no, we're not doing that. And so you do have to find that happy medium and you just have to figure out how to coach and lead through it. It is kind of a weird situation to coach through, whether it's over talking or under talking, but utilize role playing in every single way that you can. And I think this is another reason that structure is so important, whether it's structure throughout the guest experience, the consultation, whatever it is, because if you can teach somebody somewhat of a roadmap, even if it's a little bit more scripted, sometimes it's easier just to get them talking as you move forward. And then it just becomes a little bit more natural. So 100%, I think that is spot on. All right, guys, as we wrap this up, the biggest thing that we want women and salon owners, spa owners, beauty business owners to walk away with and understanding is this. You do not have to build a business from the version of you that was trained to feel bad for having needs or visions or boundaries or dreams. And I think that matters a whole lot because so many salon owners, they're not just tired from overworking, they're tired from the emotional weight that they have attached to their work and then trying to go home and be everything to everyone. You don't have to be available to everyone. You don't have to understand everyone. You don't have to be helpful to everyone. You don't have to do all of those things. You have to really learn how to hold on to yourself in the middle of everything so you can get through and be who and what you want to be for each and every person. Your business is always going to require leadership. Your family is always going to require love and your presence. Your relationships are always going to require care, but none of those roles are going to require you to disappear in order to prove that you care or that you love somebody. That's just not how it is. I think that's a part of becoming the CEO of your life and your business, really. And that is what you need to focus on, is being the CEO of your life and your business. It's not just about making more money or creating more systems or getting out from behind the chair. It's about learning how to make decisions from a clear place instead of an exhausted one, and you being in control of the scenario all the time. If you guys are listening to this and thinking, okay, I do not want to keep building my business from burnout, pressure, or constantly feeling pulled in every single direction, this is exactly what we help salon and spa owners do at the Beauty Biz Agency. We help you build structure, profit, leadership, and systems so the business does not have to depend on you holding every single thing together anymore. So if you want support building a business that actually works for your life instead of constantly draining it, head over to our website, thebeautybizagency.com. Grab some of our resources. We have a ton of them on there. Schedule a free strategy call with our team so we can just help you figure out next steps. If this episode helped you or just made you think a little bit differently, share it with another woman or salon owner who might need to hear it. And please don't forget to leave us a 5-star review so other owners can find the podcast too. Also, make sure that you're subscribed so you don't miss out on any of the things we have coming up. Chandra, how do they do that?
Make sure you're following us on all social media platforms at the Beauty Biz Agency on Instagram, Beauty Biz Mentors on TikTok, and the Instagram and Facebook at the Beauty Biz Agency. And send us your questions. We'd love to hear from you guys. And, hope this conversation was helpful for you. And, maybe that will help you start making some changes.
Absolutely. All right, friends, that's a wrap of this episode of the Beauty Biz Breakdown. We hope this conversation gave you permission to take a breath, look at what you've been carrying, and remember that building something meaningful does not mean you have to completely lose yourself in the process. Until next time, keep working hard and building the business of your dreams. Keep honoring the woman behind that business and start leading like the CEO you want to be. Now go out there, make bank, run the show, and ditch that chair. And as always, keep slaying those business goals with a whole lot of swagger. If this episode lit a fire under you, don't just walk away and let it die out. Deep down, you already know where you want your business and your life to go. And the truth is, the only thing standing between where you are and where you want to be is a real plan to get you there. That's exactly what we help you build. So if you're ready to stop trying to figure it out on your own, head to thebeautybizagency.com and book your free strategy call. That call can give you the clarity that you've been needing and a real plan to move your business forward. Because at the end of the day, the only thing standing between you and the salon business you've been dreaming about is whether or not you're willing to take the action and the steps in order to build it.